Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Richard Piacentini. I'm the Executive Director for Phipps Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, and on behalf of Phipps, we welcome the Secretary and all our other distinguished guests to here, and all our community partners here. It's great to see everyone. We're really excited to have you here. I hope today that you'll have a chance to visit our Center for Sustainable Landscapes, which is over here. Many people are calling it now the greenest building in the world. It's the first building in the world to have met the Living Building Challenge, LEED Platinum, 4-star sustainable sites, and Platinum Well Building certification. We're really excited about that. It's something nobody else has ever even achieved. And this Thursday, the American Institute of Architects will be recognizing the building as one of the top 10 buildings in the United States at their annual meeting in Philadelphia. So we're pretty excited about that as well. Now, as excited as we are about that, what's really exciting is when we think about the fact that this building was designed and built by people from Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. And you know, when we put out the request for proposals on this building, we said, if we're going to design the greenest building in the world, it should really should be about Phipps. It should be about all the great talent we have in this region. So we put together a team from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We got our universities involved. We got our community partners involved. And they did something no one has ever done before. They designed the greenest building in the world. And it really, to me, speaks of the great talent and the ingenuity of people in this region. Never once did they ever flinch. They never once said, we can't do this. They just put their heads to the ground and they just did something that's really incredible. So I hope that you'll come and take a look at it. We're really excited about it. We're really excited to be a part of this community and all the great things that are taking place here. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Anthony Foxx, U.S. Secretary of Transportation. I want to thank, first and foremost, this wonderful facility and its leadership for having us here. To the mayor and to the county executive, thank you so much for a great partnership. I just want to open up this morning with just a couple of opening comments, and then I guess I'll turn it over. Well, our team is very excited to be here in Pittsburgh. When we launched the Smart City Challenge back in December, we did not know how much receptivity there would be to a $40 million challenge with a very short turnaround time of I believe, February for the application, the initial phase of the application to come through. And we were blown away. We were blown away by 78 applications from all over America, cities and communities that recognize we've got growing challenges as a country. We have population growth, we have higher congestion. I actually experienced some of Pittsburgh's finest this morning coming in. We have climate change, which is impacting how we need to build. We have technologies that are making advances, and how we harness those advances is part of the challenge of the 21st century. And then we have the challenges of how we align dollars and decision-making to ensure that we are continuing to pass on to the next generation better mobility and not worse mobility, where this cohort of young people coming along now are facing some headwinds in terms of our ability to achieve that goal. So we launched this challenge in December. 78 cities responded. And then the tough work began of trying to figure out how to winnow that list to 5. And as we looked at the various applications, to tell you that actually 7 of them rose to the top, and we just couldn't get down to 5. And Pittsburgh's was one of those. And so this week I'm actually going to all cities, and I'm taking the time to come and learn from the community what its aspirations are. And I had a great talk with your county executive and your mayor just a few minutes ago, and gave me some detail, but I'm looking forward to hearing from you. From here, we expect to make a final decision this summer on the winning city. The winning city will receive $40 million from the department, But it will also receive $10 million from Vulcan Foundation, Paul Allen's group, and a host of other in-kind support services from companies like Mobileye and Amazon. There's a bunch of them that are going to chip in and provide some in-kind help to the winning city. But also, I want to make one point here too. We want all of these cities to complete the vision work they've started. And so I've got my team working to deliver for all the cities, all 78 of them, a matching document that shows them how their vision statement connects to existing DOT programs. And we also are going to continue working over time to make sure we can help. But at any rate, we believe the smart city concept is one that around the world there's a lot of conversation about what a smart city is, and this for us is an opportunity to begin defining it in real terms. So Mayor, Mr. Executive, I want to thank you for helping to bring the community together and for the leadership in both the public and the private sectors and the NGO and the community. Because what we already know about your application is that you really have come together. So with that, I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Well, let me at least get started with this one. First of all, I want to thank the Secretary and President Obama for having the vision to know that the transportation systems that we've built since the 50s and we're still using today to be forward-looking for the next 5 to 6 decades, we're preparing for now. And technology is jumping ahead so fast and so far. When you think about things like driverless vehicles, autonomous vehicles, smart grids, smart transportation, signaling, etc., and the way the new economy is clustering around urban centers and bringing, in essence, crowding. And we actually planned that traffic jam, so we wanted to let you know. We had everybody standing on the Parkway West as you came down. No, that's the way every single day our transportation system, as we grow again, we need to make sure we're growing in a smart way. And to bring together, all the folks around technology who are here, and it really is all of our agencies, our transit agencies, our health department, workforce development, our universities, energy companies are here, the business community, our foundations. I mean, we really do, under the mayor's leadership, have brought together all of the stakeholders who are part of what we need to be in transforming a once great industrial city, which is now a great technology and diverse city. And that's, again, I want to thank you for your leadership in thinking through where transportation and technology come together as we move with climate change and with all the things that are happening in our world, your leadership in for doing this. So, Mayor?
So there are trends that happen, and our job is to be able to analyze trends. And then there's shifts that occur. And we have a visionary secretary who understands where to shift. The whole idea of transportation and urban planning is going to change. And we haven't seen a shift like this since the 1950s. And everyone in this room knows of the historic leadership of Mayor David Lawrence, who had a vision. And that vision was based around the automobile. And we redeveloped downtown Pittsburgh, and we built bridges and tunnels, and we built parking garages, and we built highways. And those highways cut off neighborhoods. Those tunnels and bridges led to suburban sprawl and urban decline. And we created corridors of carbon throughout our lowest income neighborhoods, and that was part of the after effect. Our job is now to think about transportation in a much different way. It's not about getting into a car and going somewhere. That it's a part of the past. It's about how we look at all modes of mobility, whether it is walking, whether it is a bike, whether it is public transit, whether it is a car, or whether it's a person with needs, and how are they able to get to where they need to go. So this city's economy was based on steel. And during that era, the economy was based on how to get big steel to market. And we built the highway system and we built that opportunity. Our new economy is based on getting people to workplace. And people from all parts of the city need to be able to get to work by the mode of mobility that they choose. And we don't have that. We have an infrastructure that is still based in the 1950s. And we have to be able to change that, to be able to reconnect. Now here's the great thing. You look around this room and you see the future of Pittsburgh. You look around this room and you see people that are working and have been working in silos on different parts of building that city that we know that we want to build, a Pittsburgh for all. But now we're working together. And the beautiful thing about it is we've been given a deadline of May 24th to get done. So, what does that mean? It means that working with the county and working with the Port Authority and working with the County Economic Development and City Economic Development, we realize the need of getting greater transportation options between Pennsylvania's second largest job center and its third largest job center, connecting Oakland to downtown in a very viable way to be able to give more opportunity to people. We realize that along the Monongahela River, we're going to see economic development and growth occur all the way from downtown to Hazelwood. But if you try to get there, you go back to the 19th century. And we need to look at new ways to be able to do it. We also realize along these corridors and the opportunity that we can reconnect the Hill District to those different areas and be able to do so in a way that will take away the concrete barriers that have added to the economic collapse within that neighborhood. And we can do it in a way that is done so that the pollution is lessened and the quality of life is risen. And in all the scenarios that we're looking at, we also see an overlay where our combined sewer overflow problem is the greatest. And by combining transportation, energy, and stormwater reduction, we can rebuild these neighborhoods in green ways and create things they haven't had, parks as a part of it. And then we can look to the future with technology that's being created right now that doesn't even exist yet next door to Carnegie Mellon. In energy systems that will be the part of the 21st century where we no longer will have to rely upon a coal-burning plant 80 miles away that used clean technology in order to be able to do it, and it's being revolutionized right down the street at the University of Pittsburgh. And then partnering with groups like Uber to be able to understand that maybe in 30 years, people aren't building light rail systems anymore because autonomous vehicles have taken away the need to have a car and have been able to create a point A to point B direct access for everybody. Not a mile away of having to walk from a stop on a train, but directly to where you need to get to. The doctor, the supermarket, or your job. And guess what, folks? Everyone in this room is working on that right now. Now our job is to pull it all together, to make it one plan. So we've been working very closely with PennDOT. And the secretary called on Friday. Governor Wolf is committed to this and has added an additional $11 million so that all the different parts that we're talking about right now, we don't have to reduce any, but that we'll be able to make our application something that will all happen. And you know there's a timeline on this too. We get 3 years to spend all that money. So what we need to do is basically not only have a game plan, but an implementation plan, which means we have to change city government. No longer can the Public Works Department have the capacity to do the things we're talking about. So we have to create a new Department of Mobility and Infrastructure and be able to have the capacity to do all the things we're talking about, from the stormwater reduction to the energy facilities, to autonomous vehicles, to social mobility, and be able to make it all baked in and the capacity to deliver. And that's where we stand today. So about the application itself, and then I'm going to ask a few people to talk. Is Matt here? I thought I saw him. There you are. So Matt Barron from the Heinz Endowments. I just would ask if you could come on up. This is very informal, by the way. I like it when people aren't prepared to speak and then just are thrown into the situation. Just where we're at, some of the different parts of how all of this comes together, And then I'm going to ask you to basically just give us an understanding of where you see us going between now and May 24th.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Secretary, for being here. So the way we're looking at this, as the Mayor said, is taking all of these disparate pieces of our infrastructure, transportation, energy, stormwater, social mobility, and layering them over on top of one another to maximize the benefits that we can get from them. So when we're digging up a street to work on a new transportation project, we also go in and implement green infrastructure to solve the stormwater issues. We can also add renewable energy. You know, we can layer a few of these infrastructure pieces on top of one another and really maximize what we're getting out of them. So that's kind of the core of what we're talking about. But I think there are many people in this room who have been really strong partners on this, and we'd love to ask a few of you to talk about your work. So Pat Clark from Jackson Clark Partners, if you could say a few words about your involvement in this as well.
And it does work. Excellent. I'm Pat Clark. It's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Secretary, the more I've learned of you, the more excited I am to be here. My firm has developed over the past several years, actually starting with a project we did for the mayor back when he was a council person, a process of going door to door and gathering data and building community at the same time. We've called it the Community Civic Census, and it's the means we use to gather data at a household level that can then be rolled up for analysis. But it's also actionable data. We've done work in a number of communities in Pittsburgh's North Side, in Hazelwood, in Larimer. We're blessed to be a part of the Larimer Choice Neighborhoods application, and as a matter of fact, our work with the Larimer Consensus Group was held up as a promising practice by HUD. What we've done is a peer-based process that employs people in the community. When we walk in, the first thing we do is hire people. In order to build equity, I think that's an important first step. And as we go about our work, we've been able to, through a partnership with a researcher in the UK named Eric Bouchard, help us realize the people and performance part. I'm going to guess the mayor has talked to you a lot about P4. We put people first. That's critical. I think that innovation and technology must enrich people's lives and not diminish it. But you have to be able to hit performance too. And we do that in dollars and cents in partnership with Eric Bouchard, a researcher in the UK who took our data from Hazelwood, put an analysis on it, and is able to extract not just an environmental return on investment, but a social value return on investment, so that when you look at a development project, you can look truly at what is generally invisible, how you value the impact of that development on people's lives. And we're able to do that because we focus on participation. We've been able to, in our process, start with 1,100 households in the Larimer neighborhood. We got 43% of those households to participate on answering 240 questions, data points, including a range of transportation issues. We then moved to Hazelwood, where 2,100 people live in the greater Hazelwood area, and we were able to get, again, 40 to 45% response from those households. And on the north side, we bumped up to 20,000 households, and through a combination of online and door knocking, everything we do employs one-on-one door knocking. We were able to get in the 5 targeted door-to-door neighborhoods, 21% participation in those neighborhoods. And that allows us to get that performance point that's going to be critical to make sure that people continue to come first and the measurable impacts. And I have here the gentleman who works with us and is our lead in those communities, George Thomas, who is one of our first hires.
Thank you, Pat. Hi, my name is George Thomas. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mr. Secretary. To jump on Pat's point, the biggest thing that I learned doing this outreach was I was a member of a 12-man team hired in Hazelwood, and we talked to people from our neighborhood about issues in our neighborhood, was empowerment. We are one of the last few mixed communities in the city. There's the poor, there's the not so poor, there's the affluent, white, black. We're a really mixed community. But we all had one common ground that we stood on, and that was that if your voice is not heard, if you're voiceless, well then you get despair. We were able to reach out to people and give them a voice. And I think that was really important on all issues, including transportation. Pat knows all the little technical things, but I'm on the ground. And the people who were involved in our community census project still remember that, and they still reach out to us to this day. And we're still able to reach out to them and help them with those issues: healthcare, school for their children, things that people don't even think they don't realize they don't have them until you realize you don't have them. And I could go on with some really exciting things. This room's kind of big, so I'm going to give it mic to Pat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So what Pat was referring to, P4, was something that was created back in 2014. Andre Hines and the Hines Endowments and our city, together with people in this room, putting together a proposal that anytime that we use public money, we should be looking at 4 key principles: people, planet, performance, and place. And using the P4 principle as a way to really see the type of city we want to see develop. The work that's been done thus far with it and with the application itself has to also go through the P4 filter. So in our application, you'll see a lot of references to how it will meet those different types of measurements. One guy who's been working a lot within building the capacity for workforce development and creating opportunity within the city, Bill Generett. Where are you, Bill? There you are. I was wondering if you might be able to speak a little bit about the work you're doing, and then also how that can play into this application.
Sure.
Great, well, thanks a lot. Proud to be here. Thank you, Secretary. Our organization, Urban Innovation 21, started in 2007, really with the goal of connecting disconnected communities to the new economy. So we like to say that behind our universities and our largest T-BAIT organization, we're the second largest provider of incentives for innovation companies in the region. But that's just one thing we do. We try to make sure that as the companies relocate and cluster in traditionally disconnected communities, that from a place perspective, the residents benefit. So through connecting the dots, we make sure that projects occur, like a grocery store. We try to make sure that the case can be made. Also, Workforce Development, Energy Innovation Center, which is a great building in the Hill District, which, when it reaches its full potential, will provide workforce development training to connect residents from that community and other communities to the new economy. But we also have specific incentives to help residents start businesses that can connect to new economy, and it's something that several cities have copied, Detroit, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., but it's all about helping residents and providing a suite of services that really help get them integrated into the new economy. And so we've been doing that since 2007, so really one of the first organizations in the country to work under what's called an inclusive innovation model. And I think what's exciting about our city at this juncture is that a lot of this work has started with the leadership of our great elected officials. We're now seeing silos break down and groups come together. So we have our elected officials, also our foundations that are really doing that work. But we're not starting from ground zero.
Thank you. Part of this application too has to have the George Jetson aspect, right? I mean, it's not that you're looking for just improve and be able to hit the different parts, but where does technology take us? We've been fortunate to partner. We're the first city in the country to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the university. The city of Pittsburgh, through the leadership of our chief of performance and innovation and performance, created this MOU, which then created Metro Lab, which is 22 cities around the country with universities. That's presently housed right here in Pittsburgh. CMU has provided to our city government an entire department of innovation, and we have been providing the CMU an urban lab to test it. Stanley Caldwell, where's Stan? There you are, Stan. Nice glasses. I haven't seen you since you had 3 glasses. SureTrack And we've already been able to implement it, and part of our application will be how we'll be able to expand it. But from SureTrack, other types of ways that we'll be able to use sensor detection and other types of ways to improve mobility.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it was about 7 years ago now when the Hillman Foundation came to CMU and said, you know, we see this whole world of intelligent transportation systems emerging, and we should be doing this here in Pittsburgh. And we looked at it and said, well, we don't even have a transportation or department or degree anymore at CMU, but looked internally and said, wow, this whole new world of transportation is emerging. You know, working on autonomous vehicles for the past 30 years, a lot of that had been Department of Defense, but we saw that, okay, this was coming to reality from a commercial side. And some of these first deployments, you know, the focus had always been through this Traffic 21 initiative, research, development, and deployment. So finding real world problems and trying to apply technology from the university to that. And one of the early applications was on traffic signalization. And so one of our, through the Robotics Institute, one of our faculty members came up with saying, hey, we could apply machine learning to traffic signals. And so it was our job then to go to the city, and I remember meeting with the city law department with the conversation of, well, what would you think about having robots control your traffic signals? And I thought, you know, at that time, like, okay, this is, you know, we maybe laughed out of there, but it really wasn't. It was interesting where the city said, you know, we've had this relationship working together for years, and they said, let's try this out. And we tried it in a small deployment area with 9 traffic signals and got incredible results at that point from, you know, reducing stops from 40%, reducing emissions. The Heinz Endowments was, this was part of their BREATHE project, reduce particulate emissions, reduce emissions by 20%, and really expanded from there. Then on top of that, we became one of the affiliated testbed sites for the connected vehicle technology. And so that was the next step, coming to the city and saying, hey, there's this new thing called dedicated short-range communications radios. You mind if we put these up too, to see if we can start testing some of this? So what this all demonstrated was that for the last 5 or 6 years, the city and the county, the local port authority, our local metropolitan planning organization, who we also have an MOU with, were all willing to be test beds for these new innovative technologies. And it was the Hillman Foundation goal originally of 7 years ago, saying, let's make Pittsburgh a smart test bed for intelligent transportation systems. And so that's how a lot of this came to fruition. But again, taking the SureTrack adaptive traffic signal system and using that as a basis to start putting on all these other technologies, including connected vehicle technology, automated vehicle technology, because these are all just systems of systems that can be built upon each other. But the key to all of this was the partners around the room willing to say, we're willing to be a test bed and allow you to apply some of these new innovative technologies.
And, you know, the technology doesn't end with sensor detection in the autonomous vehicles that are presently on the streets of Pittsburgh. Uber is running driverless cars in the Strip District, and in Lawrenceville, Carnegie Mellon is running driverless cars in Oakland. We may be the only city in the world that has 2 separate teams of researchers that are presently doing it. SureTrack's been in operation for several years, and our cybersecurity research is one of the top in the world to be able to make sure that these systems run seamlessly. We also have a great partnership with the University of Pittsburgh, and I spoke a little bit about the district energy, but it overlays perfectly with what we're trying to do with the transportation. I was going to ask Gregory from the University of Pittsburgh if he could say a few words about what we're doing here in partnering with long-standing companies like Duquesne Light, DQE, and People's Gas.
Thank you, Mayor, Secretary. It's a pleasure to be here. So, you know, just like transportation infrastructure needs to be reinvented, so does energy and electricity infrastructure. And we've been very fortunate here in Pittsburgh to be at the forefront of that, working with Duquesne Light, who's a tremendous partner here in the region, but many other industry organizations that are located here in Pittsburgh. And one of the things that we're doing is looking at a grid of microgrids around the city in partnership with Duquesne Light and our communities and all the stakeholders that involve that to really improve the resiliency, security of the energy grid, the electricity grid, while at the same time finding ways to integrate more clean energy resources, create more efficiency, and reduce greenhouse gases in the process of doing that. So as an example, as part of what we're doing for the transportation application is looking at this whole infrastructure as Electric Avenue. And Electric Avenue will be very different than what we see typical electricity infrastructure to look like. It will be all clean energy resources, solar, and others that will be integrated with battery energy storage, charging stations, LED lighting, all things that actually use direct current electricity instead of alternating current electricity. And that's important for our region because if you go back to our history in the late 1800s, early 1900s, alternating current was invented here by George Westinghouse. Well, today we see a shift to all of these resources and the way that we use electricity as being more DC. And we're going to reinvent that, and we already are beginning to do that here in Pittsburgh. And that's because we have so much capability with our industry partners, not just Duquesne Light, but all of the companies that manufacture these technologies that bring a lot of knowledge base and expertise to this discipline. So we're going to create Electric Avenue. It's going to be the largest DC microgrid anywhere in the world. And it won't be the first time that we try this. We've already piloted something like this with a local company, Pitt Ohio Express, which is a trucking company. And we did a small application of this for them at their new distribution facility out in Harbor, Pennsylvania. And what's interesting about that is I think back 2 years ago, we weren't thinking about a Department of Transportation application for a smart city back when we did this with a local transportation company. So the synergies are really terrific because they're looking at a future of potentially electric vehicle fleets for their trucking operations. So it all fits in very well with what we're doing here in the city. And some of this, of course, has been brought together, again, by our partners, including the foundations. The Hillman Foundation, represented here by Dave Roger, provided funding for us to move forward with our DC work through a program called DC AMPS, Direct Current Architecture for Modern Power Systems. So we're applying those principles to what we're doing in these grids and microgrids with Duquesne Light in the city through the district energy applications. So it's really been a great start for us, and this application and what we're trying to do with the grid of microgrids will fit in very well with the whole strategy that we have around the city. So we really welcome this opportunity and appreciate our participation in it. And I'd actually like Rich to maybe say a few things about what we're doing with Duquesne Light.
Sure. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I think one of the things that I would hope that you would take away from the meeting today is that the mayor has assembled quite a team here, and that we are not working individually in silos, that we are all working cooperatively, and that we're looking to leverage. I mean, the team that that's been assembled is a partnership between public, partnership between private, between the institutions, as we've seen, and we're looking at leveraging a number of capabilities that we have, right? So we're looking at leveraging the knowledge base across each of these entities. We're looking at leveraging our asset bases. We're looking at leveraging our financial resources. So in the part of Duquesne Light, in a moment I'll get to the partnership we have with the University of Pittsburgh, but beyond that, we're on our third generation of distribution automation. Today, the buzzword for that is smart grids. So we have a highly evolved automated system. We're in the process of deploying our advanced metering infrastructure. So along with that advanced metering infrastructure comes a very dense proprietary communication backbone. That communication backbone then spans all of Allegheny County. So as you think about smart city and you think about all the data that's going to have to be collected from sensors around the city, we're looking at how can we leverage that particular platform for that effort as well. We also have a subsidiary outside of the utility, which is called DQE Communications, which is a fiber optic subsidiary of ours, which has grown significantly over the course of the last 5 years. They now span about an 8 to 9 county area, and they have a very dense fiber optic network that covers all of Allegheny County. So in terms of the amount of data that may have to be moved through one of those two communication networks, we're looking at how can we partner with this initiative to provide that as well. Along the area of the partnership we have with the University of Pittsburgh and smart grid development, we have a Woods Run facility where we're putting together a pilot project of a microgrid. And phase one of that pilot project We take a look at the integration of renewables, working with the University of Pittsburgh in partnership with the Swanson School of Engineering, utilize and leverage the expertise they have to determine what type of technical challenges we may have and how we can solve those challenges. We'll also be partnering, with our regulatory body here in Pennsylvania as we tease out the operational challenges. What, if any, regulatory challenges may we need to solve as well? So I think a key takeaway here, in your visit here to Pittsburgh is that we're really looking at this holistically, and we really have, all of the players at the table. So thank you.
DQE provides the backhaul for all the different technology. You need to plug it into somewhere. We have a fiber network within the city that is comparable or exceeds Google Fiber. Most people in the city don't realize that. Most people in the country don't either. But we've already have the infrastructure in place to be able to light up the system that we will. And we will work off an open platform, meaning that the information and the data that we create will be able to be utilized through cities throughout the country to be able to do the same thing, and then eventually cities throughout the world. We are building a 21st century city, but we've also had these partners doing it independently before. What this application has given us, as many people have said, is the ability to work across sectors. One of the things that even when we first applied, we didn't even think about was how do we address our combined sewer overflow problem as a part of this as well. We have a wonderful city that when it rains hard, raw sewage runs into our rivers. If we just look at that part of it and trying to solve it and ignore all the other work that's being done, we're missing an opportunity. I was hoping Heather Sage could talk a little bit about what we're doing and how it fits in.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor and Secretary. Thank you for being here. I'm with the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, and we are a private nonprofit partner to the city for now going on our 20th year here in Pittsburgh in our park system. And we are sitting within the 4 Mile Run watershed in Schenley Park. And one of the partnerships that we've been pursuing is how we can take the work that we started to restore the watershed here in Schenley Park and expand that to the entire watershed. This is, as the mayor said earlier, one of the most challenging areas of the city for our combined sewer overflow issues. And we've been working together with many of the people in this room through that community process to identify ways that we can build upon the goals that we have for our green spaces and how our green spaces and water can again be the solution to the issues that we're facing. And so we feel like this area that we're sitting in and a number of other areas around the city can really be the case study for this true integration. The transportation work that we're talking about and that we're seeing here today fits perfectly with the work that we're talking about. And so we're very excited to be partners in this work. Thanks.
Right where we sit, right in Oakland, over the hill is Hazelwood, where 200 acres of a former steel site will be redeveloped into one of the greenest developments in the world. But it needs to be connected, and then it needs to be connected to downtown. It's also one of the worst floodplains that we have in addressing our CSO, and we can design a transportation network that will also retain the water so that it will solve that as well. And that's part of what we're doing. At the end of the day, it's still about transit and being able to get people to where they need to get. And we were joking earlier, I think most people don't realize there's very few places in this country where the county and the city work hand in hand. It doesn't exist in many cities. And that's why this application has the benefit, because of the leadership of the county executive. This doesn't happen if we don't have a strong working relationship with the Port Authority. And Ellen, I was hoping that you might be able to address some of the initiatives within the application regarding our public transit system.
Good morning, and good to meet you, Secretary. The Port Authority has been very active with Carnegie Mellon in testing SureTrack. Our buses are highly technical, clever devices, lots of data. And how does that data match with SureTrack in terms of a bus priority, as well as just simply the grid, to be able to move things more quickly? A 5% saving in time downtown could put on a route for us, a new route. Also, we're working and looking at electric buses. They're clean, they're very efficient. We've had New Flyer in, as well as Proterra. And two of my operations guys are down in Charlotte today at APTA, meeting with all three electric bus companies. And so that's something that we're looking in the future for our bus rapid transit from downtown to Oakland. And building communities, we've just, it's the first in Pennsylvania, transit-oriented development guidelines. We're looking to advocate for connecting communities and doing it appropriately with walk sheds, with bikes, with the appropriate infrastructure. So it's very much been a partnership with the city and the mayor's planning department and DPW, and it's something, this project is something that'll coalesce around everything that we've been trying to promote as a transit organization.
Also with the county, this is going to be a big part of our economic development strategy over the course of the next couple decades as we make this transformation. Dr. Quintin Bullock from the Community College of Allegheny County and the opportunities for workforce development.
Just a second, I'm running over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Secretary. The Community College of Allegheny County, we are one of the largest comprehensive community colleges that provide high-quality workforce training and access to higher education. And as we prepare to align with the new economy and the innovative technology, our faculty and staff are working collaboratively with business and industry to develop new workforce training programs so that the new workforce is coming out with the skill sets that will support the new creative technologies and autonomous automotive. We have one of the best automotive technology program that offers the training and preparing individuals for work. We've launched some new programs in the creative technologies, cybersecurity, to begin that work. We look forward to continue our efforts to ensure that the trainings that we are providing align with future workforce needs and also support the vision that is being prepared for our region.
Thank you. And also with the county, Dr. Karen Hacker, one recent study has shown that the worst air quality within our city also lies within some of our lowest income neighborhoods. Being able to do a lot of the initiatives that we're talking about has a direct effect on the health of our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and great to meet you, Mr. Secretary. It's very exciting to have health incorporated into the conversation. As we think about health in all sectors, health in all policies, this is sort of new. Certainly we my organization is the one that monitors the air quality, and obviously having electric buses is going to be really helpful, particularly with climate change, as we know that we will likely see an increase in ozone. But I also want to bring up the fact that for our county, we've been looking at a plan, and we have an advisory coalition that includes a lot of the folks in this room, really trying to figure out how do we incorporate health into all of these types of things so that in our efforts to improve the transportation system, we don't lock out certain communities. We actually think about the strategies to get people where they need to go. And I think the mayor earlier said jobs, healthcare. We have heard a lot in our travels that people cannot get to their healthcare appointments if they have radiation treatment or other kinds of things because of the transportation challenges that we face. And also then getting the right people to the right places for jobs and opportunities. But the avenue for health impact assessments and really being able to see as we develop this incredible strategy for the city and the county overall is to remember what is the impact on individuals' health. Be that their air quality, be that their access to physical activity, their access to fresh fruits and vegetables, all of the things that we really believe creates a culture of health.
Thank you, Dr. Hacker. When we spoke about P4, and I think Pat Clark mentioned it, the first P is for people. There needs to be a plan, and we've been working with the group, the Pittsburgh Community Revitalization Group, to make sure that social mobility and equity are a key component of this. I was going to ask Majestic Lane if you could speak briefly about the work that's being done and how it applies directly to our application.
No problem. Good morning, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. At PCRG, we're an umbrella group of about over 50 CDCs and CBOs across the region. And as well as, the work that people are doing in communities, increasingly people know that now things have to be comprehensive. So as neighborhoods recognize that things have to be comprehensive, it is not just about brick and mortar, it's about the ability to move through neighborhoods. That social mobility has a lot to do with transportation mobility. What we've started to do is make sure that for the CDCs and CBOs in the area, that transportation equity is one of our main policy planks. And how do we work with our CDCs and CBOs to more coordinate their thinking about where they build things, where people are having jobs, and what are the future of communities in the context of transportation. So, for example, a lot of our work in Homewood is looking at the busway, and that the busway cuts through a couple of neighborhoods, and on one side, is a prospering community, and on the other side is the community that's working to redevelop itself. So how can we harness the power of that busway? And recently, we worked with the city and worked with the state to actually access $500,000 to do infrastructure on the Homewood side of the busway in order to improve walking, improve mobility, get new bus stops, because these were things actually in this neighborhood. There were no bus shelters. And there were issues around having no bus shelters. So you can imagine when people are waiting for buses in the rain and there are no bus shelters in the proximity of the busway for people to get from where they're going. So those were things we worked with and recognized in conjunction with Operation Better Block to work to get that grant, and are looking to leverage that money to look forward to how can we do infrastructure before development comes. We often find that infrastructure comes when development comes, which takes up the cost of the development, right? So if we can make sure that there are resources that are brought to the table prior to actual brick and mortar, then we can, use those other resources to do the other quality of life issues, and also show communities that the people care, and show them that they deserve access to the best infrastructure as we're developing our region. Thank you.
Thank you. And the work that everyone in this room has been doing has been able to give us the basic foundation of what our application will be. But we've also been reaching out and enlisted the support of other organizations who we've been working with over the past couple of years. RAND, that has a very strong presence in Pittsburgh, has been assisting us, especially as it comes to cybersecurity. Brookings has been looking at a number of the different components and how we can actually place ourselves ahead of the curve of other cities that have applied, but also ahead of the curve of cities around the world. And PolicyLink has been working with us, making sure that equity is a key component of the application itself, and they're also all three reviewing it. We've also been working with international firms. So two of the leading design firms for people in the world out of Copenhagen have been a part of looking at our downtown and our Hill District and how we can reconnect the community that was disconnected about 60 years ago. BIG has been looking at a redevelopment of the lower hill and how it connects back into the middle hill. And Gale Architects has been looking at the point down to the point where the hill starts. It's very interesting. Neither had talked to each other. Both came back with a plan that's a meandering path that is the natural way of getting from the point up towards the U.S. Steel building, and then how to get from the middle of the hill and it ends at the U.S. Steel building. Being able to connect all that back, we'll be able to do what my aunt used to do when she used to work. We lived in the hill and walked downtown. And being able to see that, we've been able to leverage our foundation community. And one of the leaders of the foundation community, David Roger, who is leading a part called Envision Downtown. And David, I was hoping you might be able to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks again, Secretary, for being here today. And thanks, too, for the continuing support for the University Transportation Center at Carnegie Mellon. It's been a cornerstone for a lot of the work we're hearing about today. So the Mayor mentioned Envision Downtown. It's a broad public-private partnership. It's led by the chairman of PNC Financial Services, Bill Demchak. It's interesting, when we first sat down around the table and asked questions around what do we need to see in downtown Pittsburgh with respect to transportation and urban design, we expected there isn't enough parking and there's too much traffic congestion. And that's not what we got at all. What we heard was it needs to be pedestrian friendly, we need to see more bike lanes, and we need to make this a livable place because we're seeing growth in our residential base in downtown Pittsburgh. So this city's changing very, very quickly. Just speaking for the private funding community, I'll tell you, you'll have many partners in Pittsburgh if we're successful in this application. So the Heinz Endowments, the Richard King Mellon Foundation, the Hillman Foundation, so I represent many others. We've been doing this work, and we've been at this for a while, and we view this city as a city where innovation happens. This is where innovation is invented in many ways. I will warrant to you that we're going to do this one way or the other. What you're offering to us through the Smart Cities Challenge, what Vulcan is bringing to the table, is a chance to take it to a scale where we will be an internationally worthy demonstration project for you. So we're going to do this. You can help us expedite it, accelerate it, grow it, do it much more quickly, and do it better than we could on our own. And you're bringing all these other partners to the table, which is wonderful. But what I promise you is that we'll work harder than anybody else. We're always used to punching above our weight anyhow. So there's very little risk in this project, and we're going to get this done.
Thank you, David. You know, there's a lot of other people I could ask to speak, but I wanted to give you the broad range of what we're going to be submitting in an application that is much more beyond what the traditional view of transportation is. I know that your vision of that and the realization that we're past trends and we are at the pivot point where the next decisions will be made and will really affect the way that we plan cities is here, and that transportation is catching up with that. We have all committed ourselves to being able to implement that plan. The people in this room will be the ones who will be leading it. It won't be a top-down design from City Hall. It will be a bottom-up design of all of those people who have already been doing it, and those are the people that are in this room today. We have a saying that if it's not for all of us, it's not for us. So we will have it in a way that will improve the quality of life for all of Pittsburghers. You know, I'm 51 years old. I've lived in this town my entire life. I don't intend ever to leave. I've never seen my city grow. My entire life has been in a city that has lost population, lost jobs, lost companies. Those days are gone. Pittsburgh is ready to grow, and it's starting to happen. We're seeing those trends happening as well. The question is, what type of a city do we build? And we have the opportunity no longer to be a model of a post-industrial city that is able to manage decline. We have the opportunity to be the 21st century city and be the model for cities around the world to follow. And it's only because of the collaboration that's happening in this room. And it's only because that we have that work ethic and the cooperation ethic to actually make it happen. So I know that you wanted to have a couple of minutes for questions, and I'm going to leave it there and have the opportunity for people to add their questions or their comments.
Oh, sure.
My name is Cheryl Sirianni. I'm here for the Department of Transportation for 30 long years, and I'm pretty excited about that. But anyhow, I'm here on behalf of Secretary Leslie Richards, who is really thrilled to be able to call Mayor Peduto on Friday and announce the $11 million. She'd like to call that an investment. That's an investment into the city. It's an investment in the transformation in that to implement technology to some corridors within the city that have been maybe long without some of this updating. What Mayor Peduto forgot to mention was that not only the county and the city are great partners, I'd like to think that the state is also a great partner with the city and the county. Something different here in the city that you don't see everywhere is there's many different facilities, and you can drive down one facility and it'll be owned by the city, then you go to the next block and it's owned by the state, and then you go over the bridge and that's owned by the county. So there has to be a lot of cooperation within the city of Pittsburgh, and I think we've done a fantastic job over the years trying to manage that very difficult transportation network. Something that we mentioned the other day at a workshop, and like I said, I've been here for 30 long years, green infrastructure has never been a focus of the Department of Transportation. I think the Smart Cities grant can really allow us to implement some green infrastructure in a transportation network that has basically been concrete and asphalt for a lot of years. So we're really looking forward to doing that. That's part of what the Department of Transportation would like to spend some of the $11 million on. In addition, I think you'd be interested in this, Secretary Foxx, is that over the years it might have been a little bit harder to implement some of the initiatives because we have a pretty outdated policies. Our transportation network goes back in the 1950s, but I think some of our policies that we work on also go back in the 1950s. Some of our rules, our regs, our levels of service, all that kind of stuff. Some of it is very outdated, and I'm looking forward to this Smart Cities grant to allow us to maybe be a change agent with our great partners at FHWA in Harrisburg and in Washington, D.C. to maybe implement some of these changes to the policies and allow some of these innovations to the technology to move forward. So I just want to say that on behalf of Secretary Richards.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much for coming to Pittsburgh. County Executive Mayor, thank you. My name is Liz Fishback, and I'm here today representing United States Senator Bob Casey. And as always, the Senator is incredibly supportive of the county and the city. And I know collaboration is a word that is thrown around quite a bit these days, but when it comes to this project, this room, this county, and this city, we are the poster child. The Senator absolutely supports this application and will do whatever necessary to make sure it's successful. Very, very proud to be a partner in this and be sitting at this table. Thank you very much for your time and for coming today.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Flora. Thank you for being here. I've had a relationship with this city for about 30 years. And ultimately, you have to look at 7 very tough applications. And I think when you think about impact and the ability to implement and then improve people's lives, what we can do here, I think we've proven the ability to do all 3. In terms of impact, what happens here has to be duplicated. We basically cleaned up our air and water back in the 40s and 50s and became a world leader in that. We passed the first brownfield legislation in the country later on in the 80s. And we built the world's first green convention center, which became the world-class model for how green convention centers would be built. We've proven our ability to lead the world in what we do, and those are just a few examples. I think in terms of implement, you've heard this incredible collaborative spirit here of people working together, and that's how you get things done. And then finally, improving people's lives. Without a doubt, transportation and mobility. I've been working on the P4 project, and now I'm actually representing the foundation partners for the Almano 178-acre site on the riverfront, our last remaining big parcel. The ability to improve people's lives totally depends on how we connect people to that site and to the opportunities that I think it presents. And what this Smart City Challenge can do for us, I believe, and what we can do for the world, is to show how to do it right, how to do it through collaboration, and how to make sure that people come first. And so I think what you've heard today is very much about, in the end, how do we improve people's lives? And we can't do all of these great things that we're talking about if we can't connect people. And that's where it comes down to why this is so important to us and how we can be, I think, premier and how we make that happen and be a model for others to do the same thing around the world. So thank you, and on behalf of the Almano group and that site, which is at the middle of having all of those things done together, we really want to be your city. Thank you.
Let me add on to that. I think the word that we get as we visit all these companies, as Pittsburgh's growing again, as the mayor said, is connectivity. We right now, Mr. Secretary, have 28,000 jobs that are unfilled in our county. And the reason they're unfilled are various reasons. Number one is people may not have the skill set to work in those jobs, but also the connectivity. And I can tell you, Bob Hurley, our Economic Development Director, who's here, and his predecessor, Dennis Davin, who's now the State Secretary of Economic Development under Governor Wolf. When we visit companies, we hear 2 things. We need skilled workers. Could you provide more skill sets? And that's what President Bullock and his folks are doing, and Stephanie at the Workforce Investment Board. But the connectivity. How do we get people to those jobs? And that's what we're working on through our transit agencies, through our planning departments, connecting communities that have been disconnected before. And you hear neighborhoods that probably don't mean anything to you, like Larimer and Hazelwood, and those of us around here know where those neighborhoods are. But they're neighborhoods that have 40 and 50% abandoned properties, displacement, not connected to the community. What the mayor and the whole community is doing is providing these opportunities that are happening right now. The companies that are growing in Pittsburgh, moving to Pittsburgh because of our great technology with our universities, but now to connect people who had been left behind in connecting them in a smart way, using transportation, using energy efficiency, dealing with climate change, dealing with all the issues that we're dealing with on a global basis. So we're there, we're poised to move it forward, and all the collaboration that occurs at the federal, state, county, local, governmental levels, as well as all our private partners, puts us in just a great position to move forward to the type of city that the mayor talks about in his vision. So we're just excited about this collaboration. We're excited to have you here as part of this.
Secretary Foxx. Thank you. Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Tech Council, and very honored to be part of this group. I want to make just a simple point, is that many cities that have had the explosion of innovation in tech have had huge disparities in terms of access and in terms of people being left behind. And you can see that in Seattle, you see that in San Francisco, you see that from my native New York. Expensive to live, people being left behind in terms of opportunities in housing, and even though in many of those places there are some level of transportation that's more sophisticated than here. But what is here, the opportunity here, is that everyone around the table, and this is what makes me proud to be part of the work here, and why I would really beg for you to consider us, is that we do not want to leave anyone behind. And we want to make sure, as a strong middle class that has built this region, that middle class does not get eradicated. And that matters. As someone who represents over 1,200 tech companies and some of the innovative companies that are around the table, they care about that. And those conversations are happening open, out, and we are all worried about it, and we know that this application will be part of the most important piece to tether together the work that we're doing. So thank you. Please consider that seriously.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, County Executive, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment that, sort of following up on Audrey's comments, that with the Mayor's leadership and the County Executive, every day, as I'm Director of City Planning, in that role, every day we think about what we can do to make this a greater city of opportunity. And this project embodies that in so many ways, in terms of, when we work on the Affordable Housing Task Force, which is completing its recommendations now, and which I've had the opportunity to co-chair, that's exactly what is spoken to, like how do we actually be a city that, when these improvements come, when we make the changes in mobility and infrastructure, that unlike an earlier generation of transportation infrastructure improvements that doesn't leave people behind, but actually keeps the city strong with diverse, mixed income neighborhoods that are the backbone of what the city is and what it's provided for years. Cities only exist because they're places of opportunity. That's why people come here to live, work, play, learn. And I think we work for that every day. And I think that the combination of people that came to this group, that this planning effort, really embodies that. And the other note that I think about with this that I like so much is that the man who transformed Barcelona always began his talks with, there's no plan without a project. And I think that here it's like the drive of this, of like this focusing our attention on how this really comes together as a project, allows us to do better planning for the city.
I think we're going to move over to press questions. I know that all the DOT folks need to take off in a second, so if there are any questions from the press, we can go ahead.
You just want to gather in that corner over there, just do both sides between.
That sounds good.
Mayor, Mr. Executive, thanks again for having me here to Pittsburgh. Listening to the comments around the table and knowing what I know about this great city and the amount of innovation that exists here, I leave Pittsburgh even more convinced that the future for the city is bright, regardless of how this competition shakes out. But with respect to the competition, I feel a little bit like one of the guest artists on American Idol. Maybe give you some ideas. and then you have to do it, you make it your own, you know. What you've described is a community that really knows that just like a fist, you have to have all of those fingers working together to work. And you've got great infrastructure already that's looking to ensure that you have an inclusive community. I think that as you go into the next several days, figuring out what the power factor is, like what is going to be different for the average person here as a result of what you're doing, is going to be, I think, pretty important. I can see the pieces of it, but I think the gestalt kind of what happens. Because this is, it's not only important for your own citizens, but this is frankly a competition that is going to make a huge statement about the world and what we think is going to happen in these great cities. And I see no reason why Pittsburgh wouldn't be hugely competitive. I've also said something to the mayor before that I was saying to this group, which is that we're not comparing Pittsburgh to anybody else. We're comparing Pittsburgh to Pittsburgh. And the question we're asking is, how can what we're bringing to the table really help Pittsburgh take things to the next level for Pittsburgh? And you know, part of what we're going to be evaluating is how much of a difference it makes for us to be someplace. And so this is another thing that I think is worth thinking about. There were several things that came up in the course of conversation that made me think about several things. One of them is, I think we as a federal government make it very difficult for cities to do what I think comes naturally for cities, which is to really figure out what I think I heard the mayor talking about and several others, which is just how do you integrate all these different systems? If you think about it, our highway department, we count lane miles and we count throughput, but we don't count overall system performance. So if you have a multitude of different modes, transit, commuter rail, highways, bike lanes, pedestrian, and you have a way of showing that a different approach to each of them can create more for all of them, we don't really have a good way of measuring that for you. And I think one of the things that a smart city will do is not only think about how everybody in the city plays a role in it, but thinking about how all the different pieces of what you have can punch greater than the sum of the parts. That's something that we have a tough time doing, but you can do it. So I think you've got an awesome opportunity here. I'm glad to see the energy here is to move forward with a vision that connects all these dots. Whether we do it or not, but I also think that you've got a huge opportunity to win this thing. So good luck with you. I wish you all the best. This is a wonderful city. I look forward to coming back when the Panthers are playing, the Steelers maybe. Hopefully it won't end up with my hoodie on. But anyway, thanks so much. It's great to talk to you, and y'all have a great day. Thanks.